Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing convenes this public hearing. Public hearing notice was given to the media on Monday, January 6th. The next notice was given on January 8th, and then another notice on January 15th. And for the record, today is Tuesday, January 21st, and the time now is 9:03. The committee will hear and accept testimonies, both oral and written, on the following bills. Bill number 244-35 LS, sponsored by our Legislative Secretary, Senator Amanda Shelton, and co-sponsored by myself, Senator Vice Speaker Talina Cruz Nelson, and Senator Jose Piro Terlay. An act to add a new section 20203 of Chapter 20, Title 19, and a new section 6213 of Chapter 6, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, and to appropriate an additional $200,569 from the unappropriated general fund balance as of the end of fiscal year 2019 to the Department of Youth Affairs for the reclassification of youth service workers to youth. What was the title? To youth correction officers. And Bill 243-35 LS, introduced by myself, co-sponsored by Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, the Legislative Secretary Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Jose Piro Terlay, Senator Mary Camacho Torres, and Vice Speaker Talina Cruz Nelson. An act to appropriate $280,000 from the unappropriated general fund balance as of the end of fiscal year 2019 to the Department of Youth Affairs. Also, Bill 214, sponsored by Senator Mary Camacho Torres, an act to add a new Article 5 to Chapter 48, Title 21 of the Guam Code Annotated, relative to providing lease protection from tenants who are victims of family violence, sexual assault, or stalking, and to further citing this act as the Guam Safe Housing Act of 2019. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my colleagues. From my far left, I have Senator Mary Camacho Torres, I have Senator Jose Piro Terlay, Senator Therese Terlay. To my far right, I have the Minority Leader, Senator Tello Taidegui, and the Legislative Secretary, Senator Amanda Shelton. General rules for the public hearing. The conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of sign up on the sign-in sheet. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you are done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, and may be desired by members of the panel. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony or may be asked to leave or be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name for the record. We will now begin to hear testimonies on Bill 244-35 LS, and being that Bill 243 is also related to DYA, Department of Youth Affairs, I would ask that, unless my colleagues have any objection, I'll have the testimony both be stated at one time, so it'll cover both the Department of Youth Affairs. I'd like to also remind my colleagues that yes, the funding source for both bills are from unappropriated funds. The administration has already stated that they prefer to pay down the deficit, and I prefer to, with the unappropriated funds, but I prefer, and I think most of my colleagues prefer, that we move some of that unappropriated money to funds to agencies that need the funding, need to get fixed. And the Department of Youth Affairs is one of those agencies. We need to bring parity to where you stand, and if you have to be consistent with the post, then let's be consistent with the pay. Let's be consistent with everything else, so that when they say you're in compliance with the post, you're across the board being paid the same amount and being provided the funds to get the training. That being stated, I would ask Senator Amanda Sheldon to have her opening statement, then I'll provide mine for 243, and then we'll be able to begin. All right?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sujas Masi, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank all of the Department of Youth Affairs, the youth service workers for being here this morning to testify for this bill. And really, Bill 244-35 is quite simple. At the beginning of the term, the director recognized that there was some inconsistency in the way that youth service workers were treated in their profession. Essentially, youth service workers work as corrections officers, and they are paramount to ensuring the safety of our youth and our community. And at the front line are more than 40 youth service workers who serve a critical role in our island's correction system. As you know, the Department of Youth Affairs is mandated with youth corrections, among many other roles. And these employees handle youth offenders with cases ranging from status violations to felonies. And the Department of Youth Affairs is mandated to house this youth correctional facility, and youth service workers are their corrections officers, subjected to similar conditions and dangers as other corrections officers in our counterpart agencies. So thus, Bill 244-35 seeks to reclassify these DYA youth service workers, their titles from youth service workers to youth correction officers. And I know that the DYA will provide some recommendations for better wording for this title, which will reflect their jobs and what their responsibilities actually entail, so that we can put them on the same level playing field as other corrections officers in our community. So I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing this bill today, for all the testimony that will come forward, and I thank you very much for the testimony that will help us to strengthen this bill and move forward quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. And in reference to Bill 243-35, as you all know, the Department of Youth Affairs exists to ensure the safety and security of youth status and non-status offenders who are remanded to the youth correctional facilities and cottage homes. But this is not all they do. Since DYA was created in 1978, they have continued to make self-improvements throughout the years. Prior to 1995, DYA was best known by the Guam community as the place where juvenile offenders were just incarcerated. In 1996, the department's main focus shifted to address juvenile delinquency prevention, treatment, and aftercare. This small but much needed investment in DYA in Bill 243 will assist the hardworking and often forgotten professionals with additional training with the goals of implementing new strategies and programs that will help curb recidivism, enhance community outreach programs, reinforcing safety and security practices, and building capacity and maintaining facilities, all with the same goal of helping youth who are remanded or housed at DOA will be afforded the opportunity to thrive once they are released. I look forward to hearing the testimony on Bill 243, and thank you for coming today. We have, I think I mentioned everybody, and let's see. We will begin from the left, and then my left, and then, or are you representing the director?
First, or
Where's the director at?
I'm not certain.
Okay, I just got word there's some family urgency.
Yes.
So, you're the administrator.
Yes.
You pretty much knows what goes on in the administrative part, right?
Yes.
So you should be able to, not only on your behalf, but also speak on behalf of the department, I would hope, in their best interest. So we'll begin with you, and then we move to, and you're in charge, right? So then we'll move to your left after that. Our
Okay.
right, your left. the director is aware of your attendance
Yes,
today?
yes, she is.
And she's endorsing your
Yes,
testimony?
she is.
Okay, that sounds great. That actually solidifies your testimony. Okay, we don't want anybody going against the agents, the administration, okay? You're all working as one team. Okay, so we'll begin with you, ma'am.
Thank you. Buenas and half a day, Honorable Senator San Agustin, Senator Tello-Taidagui, Senator Shelton, Senator Terlahi, Senator Peter Terlahi, and Senator Mary Camacho Torres. Thank you for the opportunity to submit my testimony in support of the passage of Bill number 244-35 for the reclassification of youth service workers to youth corrections officers. My name is Corrine Tyron Bendicho, and I am currently the Youth Development Administrator at the Department of Youth Affairs. I have been employed with the government of Guam for over 27 years. 23 plus of those years have been spent working through the ranks at DYA. Today I appear before you humbly asking for your support, not just as a fellow DYA employee, but as the wife and widow of my late husband, Albert Salas Bendicho, who honorably retired from DYA as a youth service supervisor after fulfilling 30 years of service to the government of Guam on January 23, 2015. Of the 30 years of service, my husband served 24 of those years, rising to the ranks of a youth service worker 1, 2, and eventually that of a youth service supervisor. Of the 24 years in which my husband worked at DYA, we were married for approximately 15 of those years. As his wife for those many years, I can attest to the hard work and dedication in working the front line to help our island's most troubled and at-risk children and youth. And as much as he truly loved his job, I witnessed firsthand the toll in which the stressors associated with shift work and working with this specialized youth population took on his health. In fact, on or around 2010, at the medical advice of his doctor, my husband went to the retirement fund to find out if he would be able to retire as a law enforcement officer. To his disappointment, he was informed by officials there that unfortunately DYA officers are not considered uniformed personnel, and thus he was not entitled to the 5-year early option afforded to then recognized uniformed personnel. For the love of his family and by the grace of God, my husband was able to make countless sacrifices that allowed him to eventually retire 5 years later. Esteemed senators, one important aspect that Director Melanie Brennan continues to press upon me is that in order for arguments to be much stronger, it is important to show evidence-based information. And so to this regard, I have researched information to offer you today as you contemplate your decision as to whether or not to support this bill. The legal understanding of age and development has truly evolved over the years. The discourse about child development emphasized the need to nurture and train impressionable minds and malleable youth. Changes during this early period included requirements for education and restrictions on physical punishment and child labor. In relation, the first justice system designed specifically to act in the best interest of the child was created in the United States. Youth were easily impressionable, so incarcerating them with hardened adults was thought to be more harm than good. These troubled youth's impressionability also suggested they were more likely to be reformed than adults. The new belief in child development in cognitive, emotional, behavioral, physical, and social aspects led to the implementation of safeguards for youth. Modern examples of these safeguards in today's society include legal ages for driving, drinking, smoking, vaping, and other potentially hazardous behaviors. It is through this evolution that in terms of crime and punishment, young offenders were dealt with in a separate system, namely the juvenile justice system, and on a more discretionary basis than adults. As is evident, notions of adolescent development continue to be problematic and offer challenges in legal and policy realms. Issues related to development have, however, played a prominent role in theory and in trying to better explain crime and criminal trends insofar as statistics are concerned. In fact, scholars have observed and noted that delinquent offending during adolescent years is normal and not in and of itself indicative of a chronic offender. The expectancy that most young offenders cease their criminal offending as they develop is also consistently noted. Most young offenders will age out of crime and commit to socially acceptable institutions like family, employment, or experience other turning points during their transition into adulthood. When you factor in all this history and research, and then take into consideration the Juvenile Justice Reform Act and 4 core protections for juveniles, in a nutshell, this essentially means that only the really high-risk, serious, and chronic juvenile offenders should be held in our custody long-term in order to protect the community and as mandated by law. In this regard, I argue that youth service workers at DYA are subjected to the same conditions and dangers as corrections officers are at DOC, as they too put their safety and well-being on the line each and every day, providing care and custody to youthful but also serious, chronic, and sometimes violent offenders, and thus, in fundamental fairness, deserve parity in their pay to their correctional counterparts. Furthermore, in simply looking at and comparing the pay scales of youth corrections officers to adult corrections officers in Guam, at every level there is a clear and indicative pay disparity. Just as an example, at the entry-level position of a youth service worker 1, in comparison to his counterpart, a corrections officer 1, there is a pay disparity of 2 letter grades. A youth service worker 1 is at a pay grade of FL, while a corrections officer is at a pay grade of HL. Another prime example would be that of a youth service supervisor whose pay grade is at an IL, compared to his counterpart, corrections officer supervisor 1, whose pay grade is at a KL. Finally, the last example is that of the youth corrections superintendent, whose pay grade is at an NL, equivalent to that of the assistant corrections supervisor, and not that of his counterpart, the correction facility superintendent of DOC. In closing, I would just like to say that I still feel the hurt and strong convictions my husband felt alongside his colleagues, a few of whom are still employed with DYA today and are probably in this very room. I remember him telling me stories about them going in groups to meet at the various senators' offices to voice their concerns, and how despite their efforts and voices, they felt disparaged, frustrated, and ignored, with each and every time they fell victim to the empty promises made by past leaders. Although it was emotionally difficult for me to be here today to give oral testimony in support of this bill, and even though I personally have nothing to financially gain from the passage of this bill, at the end, I would feel remiss if I did not make the extra effort, because I know it was a subject very near and dear to my husband. The very fact that Bill 244-35 made its way to the legislative floor is and of itself a great accomplishment. And for that, I respectfully thank and acknowledge all the authors of this bill. And so, in my husband's memory and to honor the legacy he leaves behind as a fellow DYA Youth Service Supervisor, I stand before you today, once again humbly asking that you support his fellow DYA brothers and sisters to bring to fruition and give closure to this long-standing issue that has existed for many years. Senators, this is your opportunity to make right on one wrong of the past. Please do right and swiftly pass Bill number 244-35. Jesus Masi.
Thank you. Sir, stay strong, girl.
Good morning. Buenos dias. If I can ask, sorry, Senators, just for a second, just because of our officers also that we just heard that have passed away in Hawaii, say our prayers. Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, Honorable Senators, Jesus Masi, thank you for all your time and effort very humbly asking that as we continue our efforts to be diligent, it has been since 1978, Distiki 1978, Distiki Public Law 14-110, we've been very diligent and working hard to get to the point we're at. We have grown up. It's been 42 years since DYA and its officers have escalated to the point where we're at now. So we continue to ask to continue to look at where we're at with regards to everything that is evidence-based on how we work in contingent with the other law enforcement officers, directly with GPD, directly also with juvenile probation, with any of the law enforcement officers where we're the receiving end also that has the clients that we're exposed to, and not only based on the actual offenses that they're charged with, but also in the treatment that we assist with. Our efforts has consistently showed the similar duties that is not only rendered, but more importantly, carried out by our DYA officers. We are ethically meeting all requirements across the board, and our time in regards to post requirements is we've really invested in all Category 1 requirements, from education to physical and any other requirements across the board. So senators, this is where we're meeting the requirements. We have the numbers to show how we're successfully passing and getting certified and becoming a huge member in regards to post overall requirements as law enforcement officers. So as I strongly advocate for this bill, for 244-35, to strongly be passed, I continue to ask if there's anything else in regards to our officers. This is where we have shown and demonstrated over 40 years on how we've committed to be full-on law enforcement correction officers at that level where we can be recognized and reclassified to juvenile correction officers that are carrying that actual responsibility and duty. Si Diyos Masi, and once again, as a public servant, we continue to drive and show our sincere and true investment overall as officers to continue to serve the public. Si Diyos Masi, and thank you, senators.
Could you state your position, please?
My name is David F. Faison. I'm the superintendent with Department of Youth Affairs, the Youth Correction Facility, sir.
Thank you.
Just in regards to our steps. Si Diyos Masi.
Thank you. Okay. As much as I want to go very shorter, but I'll go to the, sir, state your name and preferably your position. It would help us.
Vincent Laguana, Youth Service Supervisor. I'll be reading for our therapist who is unable to make it. So I'll go ahead and begin. Buenos Zenhoff Day. My name is Edward H. Titano, and I write this letter in support of Bill number 244-35 to appropriate an additional $200,569 from the unappropriated general fund balance as of the end of fiscal year 2019 to the Department of Youth Affairs for reclassification of youth service workers to youth correction officers. I have been with a judicial contractual therapist assigned to the Department of Youth Affairs since 2016 by the Superior Court of Guam to current date. Prior to my retirement from the government of Guam in September of 2011, I worked at DYA from 1993 as a social worker and a social service supervisor for the counseling and case management unit until my retirement in 2011. My support of Bill number 244-35 is about parity for all DYA youth service workers who need to be reclassified as youth correctional officers. This would rectify any inequity in their pay and status and bring about equal treatment like other officers, examples, Department of Correction and GPD officers. These DYA officers are well trained and work with difficult and challenging youth who are brought into DYA by either GPD or probation officers. These same officers are responsible for the safety and security of all clients, personnel, and other individuals like myself who enter and work with these youths at DYA. Their daily responsibilities of control, safety, and security of all individuals in the youth correctional setting afford them the same equity of pay, rank, and status like their uniformed counterparts, Superior Court of Guam, Guam Police Department, and Department of Correction, and other uniformed officers who are also responsible for control, safety, and security of our community at large. I therefore ask for your support and approval of Bill 244-35 to rectify an injustice and bring parity back to these uniformed officers of the Department of Youth Affairs who should be rightfully called Youth Correctional Officers. Respectfully, Ed Titan. Thank you.
Is that it? Are you going to say anything in support of the bill? Officer
I support it.
Okay, that's what we wanted to hear. You read the testimony of a therapist, but I don't, as a supervisor, I know that you probably wanted, hoping to hear you say that you support it because it's parity to you with other supervisors. I mean,
Yes, we've worked hard.
Yes.
All of us, we've worked hard, and we just,
it's amazing you
Yeah.
all survive. I know
Yes.
some of you that are here,
yes.
that you're still there. Thank God. Sir.
Buenos and half a days, honorable senators. In reference to Bill 244-35 and 243-35. My name is Sean Nelson. I hold the title as a Youth Service Worker 2, Category 1 Officer. I also wear the hats of many titles like Training Officer, RAC Officer, PREA Officer, Father, Substitute Teacher, Mentor, Nurse Assistant, and so many more. I would like to give thanks to my director, my deputy director, my superintendent, and most especially my brothers and sisters of DYA for allowing me to speak on their behalf. It is truly an honor. Over the decade I have been with DYA, through my years I have been attacked, spat at, urine and feces thrown at. This is just some of what DYA officers are challenged with. Long hours we also endure. Our 12, 14, and even 16-hour shifts, like many law enforcement agencies. Many have quit to find better paying jobs. For those who have stayed, it was a calling for us, and now DYA is our second home. Most officers have families to make the same sacrifice each and every day as other families from other Category 1 law enforcement agencies. Why are we officers treated any less? We Category 1 officers of DYA have given so much to our department, such as meeting and exceeding all tasks. For example, the posts. Our COPAT obstacle course was built with our own sweat and money, buying gears and tools to make our duties easier. Even though it was costly, it had to be done to protect and better ourselves as officers. We are proud officers who have struggled with having to get second jobs to make ends meet. Just makes no sense that the other law enforcement agencies, a training makes more than YSW1. We are all following the same post standards. For many years, directors from different administrations who have also been senators have come and gone with broken promises. Now I speak to you because our management now sees what we are truly worth. Senators, we are your front line. We are charged with juveniles who are our future. Who knows, they could be our future governors, senators, directors, doctors, nurses, and even teachers. We are where reform starts. We as DYA officers appreciate bills 243-35 and 244-35 and humbly ask your senators to correct what's wrong and to be treated fairly and equally amongst all post officers. We all, from all the officers and families of Department of Youth Affairs, Undunkalus, Tazuas Masi, for your efforts in changing the many lives that these bills will affect from this day forward.
Thank you, sir.
I support the bill.
Thank you, sir. Officer Palacios, we'll start with you and then we'll work down to the ladies. All right?
Good morning, Senators. Senator Tello, Ms. Amanda, Chairman Agustin, San Agustin, Mr. Lahi, Senator Pito, and Senator Torres. My name is Dino Castro Palacios Jr., and I'm here in support of Bill 244-35 and also Bill 243-35. Once again, buenas and afade. As a youth service worker with 15 years of experience at the Department of Youth Affairs, I am here today to humbly ask for your full support in passing this bill for our officers at DYA. As a youth worker professionals, we are tasked with the most difficult and unsung responsibilities in public service. Our officers are expected to properly care for our troubled youths that have chosen the wrong paths. Therefore, we are officers that are rarely regarded as being part of law enforcement community. Our officers are dealt with dealing with juvenile offenders that are sometimes involved with drug and alcohol abuse, and most importantly, serious crimes against our community, such as burglary, auto theft, criminal and sexual conduct, rape, and murder. Our officers report daily to their assigned duties without hesitation in cases of emergencies and shortage of manpower at any given time. Our officers' dedication and devotion to the community and the safety of the public are clearly an example of quality leadership for the youth of Guam. Our officers work with integrity and pride as we complete our mission as professionals trying to rehabilitate and reform our troubled youth in a positive way. With this, I am humbly asking you to support and pass this bill, as this bill addresses the parity in pay of our officers who work so hard for countless hours to serve and protect our island's community and the people of Guam. Senators, for your time and generosity in hearing our wants. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Officer Thompson.
Good morning. Buenas and Hoffaday Senators of the 35th Guam Legislature. Guawasi Jean Camacho Thompson. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to speak on behalf of my colleagues at the Department of Youth Affairs. Since the day I walked into the doors of DYA, I had a mission. The mission was to help our youth become more productive in our community by setting examples of leadership, integrity, respect, positive reinforcement, and family values, so that our youth are rehabilitated and as they are placed back into our community without fear of harm, violence, or threat. The challenge we have faced for many years as peace officers of the community is a parity of pay within our law enforcement agencies, in particular posts, where DYA has no equivalent pay compared to the Department of Corrections, for example. Our starting pay scale, since I have been employed at DYA since 1992, has dropped drastically when the Hayes study took place and has not been close to the starting pay in comparisons of a correction officer one at DOC. As the years have passed, our employees have seen our hazardous pay taken away and then given back, our freeze for increments withheld without back pay, and the promises of bonuses with increments of outstanding ratings, only to be told that there is no funding. The minimum wage at this time is almost equivalent as our youth service worker assistance pay. Our duties entails 24 hours of operations in which our officers are required to report for duty on weekends and holidays. Our officers endure 12-hour shifts and even longer with shortage of manpower at times. With less than 50 officers at the Department of Youth Affairs serving as youth service workers, our officers endure extensive hours and at times double their workload with the absence of an officer. With this unique job title as youth service workers, our employees deal with the youth that our community considers problematic and needs rehabilitation and reform. Many times the youth walk through our doors that are in need of therapy and counseling. Our officers wear many hats, and we are the first responders to the youth detained at DYA, as we are faced with many daily challenges of suicide and emotional distress. These examples are only a few of the many duties we are challenged with daily. Training for our officers is not only important, but necessary to ensure that our officers' safety is not jeopardized or compromised. Funding for our training is important to update our officers to be in compliance with required policies and procedures. The support of this bill will assist the funding for our dire need of training and equipment. Lastly, I humbly ask for your support for our reclassification for our youth service workers and funding for these reasons aforementioned. Your time and attention that you afforded our officers today is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. We have, if you just state your name, because I'm looking at the testimony, I know you're going to read from Mr. Stephen Tadella, right?
Yeah.
Right?
can't
And
go
plus
ahead
you
and
have
start
your own
with this.
testimony, right, correct?
I'm going to read on behalf of Mr. Stephen Tadella. Correctional systems here in Guam and in the United States aim to keep crime out of the streets. There are notable differences, however, when it comes to the way juveniles and adults are ultimately being held while within the system. One must consider the age of an adult person in most places, including Guam and the United States, are mostly 18, and often this is where the line gets drawn between being convicted of a crime as a juvenile and as an adult. As long as a juvenile is being tried in a juvenile court and is convicted of a crime there, they will not enter the adult facilities until they turn the legal age of adulthood. Exceptions apply. This makes a huge difference when it comes to rehabilitation, suppression of future crimes, and length of sentence. It's widely known that each correctional system uses incarnation to punish offenders. However, rehabilitation is often the key concept to juvenile corrections. Many first-time offenders commit crimes before their 21st birthday. Society contends such services would not work well with adults. Juvenile corrections also differ from its adult counterpart in the types of facilities used to store detainees and prisoners, according to Fine Law article, Jails and Prison Types and Kinds. Juvenile detention facilities are often run much like regular prisons or jail, with strict schedules, code of expected behavior, and punishment for misbehave, and further, for the purpose of placing juvenile offenders in separate facilities from adult criminals, is to insulate juveniles from bad influence, to protect them, and to attempt to curb criminal tendencies before adulthood is reached. Juvenile correction system is a set place with gander purpose. It is done in order to help rehabilitate rather than confine the troubled adolescents. So you see, we juvenile correctional officers here at DYA are more than just an officer. We are mother, father, grandfather, teacher to these kids. We love them like ours. We believe that we deserve the same pay as that is offered as adult correctional officers, because we try our best to help these kids to better their future and not lead them to a destructive life that they are headed to. That's it. Okay, buenas, my name is Susan Ancanco. I've been with the Department of Youth Affairs for 25 years. Also, the last testimony, Mr. Tadella is in support of the bill. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Not a problem.
Okay. Buenas, my name is Susan Ancanco. I've been with the Department of Youth Affairs for almost 25 years. I've seen the ups and downs that we had to endure as Team DYA. Our job is not an easy task, for we provide safety and security for all that enter our doors. To work for DYA, it takes a special person to work in our field. We are called youth service workers, but our titles should change as youth correctional officers, because that's what we are, and we deserve that title. Examples of what we do: we are a counselor, a mentor, a nurse, a teacher, a mom and dad, etc., to these juveniles that come our way. I have seen the best and the worst of these kids and how we as correctional officers try our best to make sure rules are followed. It is not an easy job. Part of our job is to make sure they eat, sleep, make sure they meet educational requirements, take them to appointments, make sure they are safe within their environment, and respond to disturbances. And it's much more than that. A few of our officers got injured doing their jobs. We had several riots, we had a suicide. We are emotionally and physically abused, but because we love our job, we stand united. We have a dorm that houses adult detainees, kids whom have bail from $1,000 to $10,000, one that is charged as an adult, and the remaining convicted felons. We need to make sure sight and sound is enforced. We also have many kids taking medication. We deal with certain attitudes and behavior, which is most difficult. They're the most hard to deal with. Once kids are on extended authorized leave, we check on these kids at home to make sure rules are followed. I remember one day we did a spot check and the kid was home, but a few hours later, that same location, a murder had taken place 3 hours right after we left that premises. We stay back at work to assist other shifts to make sure operations are met, leaving behind our kids at home, not being able to have dinner or even saying goodnight to them. We have one officer that worked at DOC that constantly brings up that DOC is much easier to work with because they don't have to babysit. At one point, we had 10 DOC officers that were assigned to DYA to assist. Even with them, they couldn't take the job. Countless of officers had resigned because our job is too intense for them. Our officers are also post-trained. We are fulfilling the requirements of the law enforcement standards, yet we are not recognized as LEO. In closing, I ask that you all join hands and support Bill 244-35 and 243-35, and please give us, make it fair and consider us law enforcement officers, because we really do deserve it. And I speak on behalf of my DYA brothers and sisters and all law enforcement officers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think I have one more. You have, right? Oh, okay. No, not one.
I apologize. I actually support both bills. I didn't realize it was going to be combined.
All right. No problem. Thank you. I have a simple question, and maybe not you or the superintendent can answer it. When law enforcement got their 40%, which took several years, the 10% every year, did DYA was allowed to participate in that?
Yes, Senator.
They were.
We're part of that Hayes study. But in regards to the standards of pay, they were looking at the current pay, where it wasn't equivalent across the board with DOC and GPD. So although they accompanied with the Hayes study, it wasn't equal to where the rest of law enforcement in Category 1 were actually placed.
No, separate to the Hayes study. Back then, we're talking about maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I think it was Senator Palacios introduced a bill to give that 40%. Department of Youth Affairs officers were part of that, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was cleared up. Okay. I'll begin questions with Senator Jose Piru Terlay.
Senior nagsaka na imidyo dyan ganing comprende finot tomorrow? Toduda, right? So tungwa na kana todudu sa mege kita hamzu Subrino. Mrs. Thompson, where are you from? I figured you're going to say that. Thank you very much. And before I share my thoughts to each and every one of you, I just want to recognize Senator Amanda Xiaotun, who is the author of the bill. And a very strong supporter of this bill is also Joseph Agustin, who's in charge of the budget. Presentingwa nam kono kisi Jo, presempi ma prebay sa lapwe. Anyway, hamju torus anay antis bay fatu gwini ni para Baisano gi public hearing. O quintusi I director Mizu si Alexis Ada gwina tempo. Da todo sangani itaw to half-ay problema. And the only reason na hamzu mastat papagi law enforcement category in as far as salary is concerned is ijun Mizu title na is service officers, not anywhere close to being law enforcement. You know, pues edgi na matutuhon is na problema. Ani matu director Mizu gi fisinao. Jamuna nangat bay biro didi tatin na ejuna humanoju para youth affairs pabenali jani director. Say na soku na go chairman gi law enforcement jeju na humanoju say soku na todo amju man law enforcement. And God and behold, I found out that you guys are not law enforcement. And I questioned the director there at that time. But then your director, your president director, and I came to my office. And I think that the superintendent was there. And she kind of just told me about what's going on. Asanganyo todo I problema. Actually, the problema na, the representation being in upholding that responsibility as service officers does not really equate your position doing what you're doing up there. Pasasanganyo Director Mizu na Taigwini Hamzu Todudus, you have to be certified post. Why is it that your people have to be certified under post when they're not even law enforcement? So prometi director Mizu na bekwintusi todui tau tagwini jastige na mangaigin. Bekwintusi za beichone zem fan matulaike jun Mizu taidu to law enforcement, and maybe in the days ahead, now we can reclassify you and change and upgrade your salary. Not only upgrading your salary because you guys have demonstrated such profound love for your job that you guys are deserving the merit of that upgrading in salary, because it needs to commensurate with your responsibilities working for the Department of Youth Affairs. And I'm not sure if I can oversee, because once we change your title to law enforcement, I don't know if the rest of the senators would allow me to continue to fill that position as your chairman. And let me tell you, I'm very passionate about law enforcement, because I used to be a cop for 18 years. And I really feel the sentiments of representation if you are not represented as law enforcement. So even though maybe my colleague would not allow me to, because I think I hold more committee in this government, and I don't know if they'll allow me to really be to chair once we reclassify you. Lo nangga jabe sangane hamzu na toru samzu gidurantin isid bisyoko gi gobernamento taja na manhungu ko nu giza hamzu na man madulala hamzu putin chechigi chechumi mizu. I have not heard any discrepancy in as far as not being firm with your position in DYA. So leliku na hamzu nai ni mangagi gini dipursi debi dita reclassify hamzu. Jakamuti man ma reclassify hamzu sempi wow saulak gini. Ezo na fun mo sa mumuro sa tagwa gini ti matungo sempi afa saulak. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say that I support this bill 244-35 because not only because I know that you have been so dedicated and so profound in your profession to be part of that youth development at DYA. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Pito Terlay. Senator Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your testimony and for all of you who are here as well. I guess I'm trying to figure out, Ms. Thompson, you said that it was 1992, or was it prior to that when the Hayes study classified you below corrections officers?
Before I came in 1992, the Hayes study dropped the pay almost $3 to $4 for youth service worker. So
And-
when I came in, it was at the lowest pay.
So what about the recent Hayes study? The more recent?
With the recent Hayes study, it still does not match a correction officer's pay.
Was
as a-
anyone involved in that review for the Department of Youth Affairs? Normally, when the Hayes doing their review, they're going to discuss it with the agencies, and I'm wondering why it was not addressed at that time when, in the recent Hayes.
Well, a lot of the new officers were given higher pay, but the officers that started back when I started, it was only like a 20 cents difference in pay.
In the new pay scale? In the
With the
most
Hayes
recent
study,
pay scale,
yes.
you're saying the new officers were...
And I have other officers here that are even longer than I have in
Yeah,
service.
it's just the same with teachers.
Yes.
Those who were in for a long time did not get a big adjustment, but the
Yes,
new
it
teachers did.
benefited the new ones.
All right, but I wanted to know whether at that time they considered classifying you as correctional officers as opposed to youth service workers. That's why I'm wondering if there's no one here from the administration of the DYA, like the director, deputy, who's next in line? Trying to figure that out. You? So I'm seeing there's two divisions at DYA,
That's
youth
correct.
development and youth correction, right?
Yeah.
So you're the administrator of youth development, you said?
Yes,
There's under youth development also a youth correction superintendent.
that's
That's
correct.
you, Mr. Fison? But you're under the youth development division.
Under the division of, right now it's classified under division of special services, which is a youth correction facility and cottage homes, oversees YCF and our cottage homes.
What's YCF?
Our youth correction facility.
Okay, so
Yeah,
under
this-
the youth correction division, who's the head of that?
I am, yes.
Okay, well, under the staffing pattern, you're listed
Yes.
under the youth development, all right.
Mhm.
So, I'm looking at is everybody here a youth service worker currently? No?
Me, yes. So
You're
my
not.
division, Senator Terlahi oversees like all the outreach prevention programs, youth development within the community. So we're the non-law enforcement side
Right,
of
and there are
DYA.
no youth service workers in your division, except for one youth service worker, and perhaps the youth correction superintendent.
Actually, he's under his own section.
Yeah,
Yeah, he doesn't report to me directly, to the deputy and
to
director.
direct.
All right, how many youth service workers in your division?
I believe in my section, we only have maybe 1, 2. We currently have 2.
I'm looking at the FY19 fourth quarter staffing pattern, and that's why I don't see only one in your
We
division.
currently
and
have
then
2. Yeah.
The rest, so are the rest of you here pretty much in the youth correction division? Youth service workers currently, all right. And under that division, there's also some positions that are not youth service workers. There are youth service worker assistant also under that category, you think?
Hi, buenas, Senator. For YCF and cottage, we all of our officers are assigned under that division, under Division of Special Services for both facilities. Our cottage homes, which is for our status offenders, as well as our youth correction facility, which is for our non-status offenders. Every individual that is assigned within that division is a youth service worker, and the status is from a YSWA up to the youth service supervisor. Those are the 4 statuses: YSWA, YSW1, YSW2, and the youth service supervisor.
All right. So the YSWA, the Youth Service Worker Assistant, you're
Assistant.
saying is also a law enforcement?
Yes, which is where we're looking at reclassifying all of the officers within. And that's where some of our progress is, where in regards to their statuses, they've been with us for numerous years, and we're trying to see how we're upgrading to promotions within our division.
That's what I'm trying to find out, where's the director, because I want to know, has the department tried to resolve this through DOA, through creating new positions through DOA?
I'm glad, and just want to say again for bringing it. As a matter of fact, we did have a quite optimistic and very productive meeting with Mr. Schnipp just on Friday. And he really clarified that we can make the adjustment just based on how we're going to be changing regarding our actual position descriptions and the titles overall. And that was a process that already DOA is in full support, and we're just also supporting this bill to make that mutually conducive for our overall goals, to make sure that everything comes to fruition from their side with DOA, as well as with regards to the legal status of our titles overall.
All right. And so, yeah, because that's critical, the way they describe your
Okay.
positions, and they're able to change those if it's appropriate right now. They should have considered that when they were doing the Hay scales recently. So I wanted to make sure that the bill is written, it describes your position, and is this the same as the current description, or is this different now?
In regards to the position description, what we have to add on is additional requirements for law enforcement that post has added on, whether it's something as basic as the requirements that for category 1, which we have met, that we're including within our actual position descriptions from A up to the YSS, up to the superintendent.
Okay. So you've met post requirements, but they're currently not requirements of your positions, not as written.
Right, within.
That's what I wanted
Yes.
to know. So you're willing to adopt that as part of your requirements, and that should, in DOA's eyes, equate you.
And we're alluding to adding the post requirements into our overall position description
Right.
for each of our officers within DYA. Again, yes.
Okay. All right, and then, I guess, Mr. Chair, that's what I would want to clarify with DOA, and, of course, BBMR, and they're not here either, and just to clarify the appropriation part of this, but I do understand what you're describing as your work, and especially appreciate the way you've described the change in youth policy, and how we're supposed to be dealing with the youth, and the increased training that we all are going to need to do that. And even though there is a shift in how we're going to deal with youth, especially like those that maybe that we can rehabilitate, you're still dealing with youth who are treated as adults because of their likelihood of, different factors that are being considered in those situations. So I do appreciate. Can you clarify? Do you receive in your shift work? I know a lot of you talked about the shift work that you have to do and how hard that is. Do you receive for night shifts night differential?
Yes, Senator.
And what about, do you receive any hazardous pay?
Yes, we have.
All right, okay, thank you. Thank you again for all of you who are here and for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Chulai. Senator Tello.
Masi, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here again. I just saw you guys last week. It's almost like deja vu. I'm like, weren't they just here last week? In fact, I wanted to first thank you so much for your testimony, Karine. After you had your testimony, I wanted to clap. It was like, come on, you guys, let's clap. But thank you so much for that testimony. It was very touching. And to your husband, grateful. We're all grateful for his work that he's done at DYA as well. And thank you also for recognizing the officers in Hawaii that were shot. One of them was our own, from Guam. So we'll keep them and their families in our prayers as we move forward. But I've been the biggest advocate of DYA, being there to support it, and whatever I can do to support, and whatever I can do to speed up this process. And looking at the current law, I know that you can go through DOA to get this done. They have the authority that's in Chapter 6, of 4 GCA. DOA can get this process going and do it a lot faster than the legislature can do it. And I think to advocate for that is with the governor's office, and DOA and your director. I'm just really disappointed that she's not here. It says a lot when you have the director, and if she's not here, the deputy director. They need to be here to support this bill. And for them not to be here, it's very disappointing. So I need you guys to go back there and ask her why. Is it political? It probably is, you guys. I'm going to be straight up with you. It is political. You know where this money's coming from, right? Money that, the administration doesn't want to touch. Now, last week we were here talking about retirement. And we needed to know how much money you guys need in order to make this happen, to give you that 5-year early out on retirement. That's real important to me. I want to know the cost of that. And we still haven't got those numbers. And here we are today asking for money for training and equipment. And of course, moving forward on the reclassification and of your positions. I think priority is number one we have to figure out from here. What is priority? The retirement? The reclassification? Now on the retirement one, we can do that through legislation, but on the reclassification, we can do that through DOA and the governor's office. I was told that we asked and the governor said she's willing to do it, but they're not really sure on the timeline. So let's push for that. I want to see a picture in PDN showing all you officers knocking on that door at the governor's office. You didn't hear that from me. Then moving forward, I totally support what you're doing. But we need to be realistic on this. I'm asking if you can please, Mr. Feisen, I know you, we're related, please get me those numbers for retirement. Because the retirement can actually oppose if it's unfunded. That's our issue right there, okay? And I know this 200,569, oh, I'm so supportive of that. I would put that in front of FESPAC, if we had any money. But this is a small amount for what's so important on our island, that we're advocating for public safety. When I worked with the women at DOC, when I was the director of Women's Bureau, I found out the majority of them had visited DYA. So this is where we need to start when they're younger, so that they don't graduate to a higher facility. We need to start at the youth. And that's what you guys are doing, and that's why I fully support anything that you put forward. But we got to do it the right way. So I thank you so much, everybody, for being here to testify, even without your director. But the next time you come up, we got to have your director here, okay? Si Diyos masi.
Thank you, Senator Tello. Senator Therese, I know you had some follow-up questions, ma'am.
I just want to check. So how many of the residents of DOA, the youth right now, are there for serious crime? Or the ones who are, can you just give us some statistics? I know that you're not supposed to be the place to house people who are homeless, but I know that that does, in fact, come up. So I just want to know if you could tell us some of those numbers for today. How many are there for certified as adults? How many are there for crime? And how many are there because of other issues that we just couldn't find another good place for them?
Hi, Senator. Overall, our numbers overall is plus or minus at 51 total clients that we service.
Can you tell us where they fall in?
These are for individuals who have been charged as an adults but are ordered to be held with us, as well as for non-status offenders that these are individuals also who have committed some serious offenses, whether it's burglary, whether it's robbery, grand theft auto. These are individuals that are also held under our custody, aggravated assault, secondary CSC, and some of the quite severe offenses that even adults will get charged with. So these individuals are held in our custody. We have less than single digits in regards to status offenders who are there because of a housing issue or based on being unable to have a home to be placed at. And these are for status offenders where based on their age, we're looking for more support within family duties and obligations.
All right. And what about cottage homes? Is that active?
That's what
Like
I was
less than
alluding
10?
to. It's mas paguma. Based on our new juvenile justice reform, a lot of the incarceration for status offenders have slightly been going down.
Yes.
But more so now focus also on our actual approach to individuals who are non-status offenses and are offenders who
Okay.
recommit.
Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Therese. DOA, folks. I like that Senator Peter Talai mentioned that I'm the chair on appropriation. I'm happy that the Department of Administration is going to take care of you. I got that commitment from the administration. They're going to take care of you. This bill I bring before with Senator Amanda is to make sure that we close the loop. If they don't take care of you, we'll make this bill go before the floor where other senators are going to support it. I mean, there's more than just the folks that co-sponsor that are in support of you folks. I'm also a former police officer like Senator Peter Talai in the 70s. And I remember back then when we pick up a youth, the first thing says, just give DOA, let them figure it out. Not realizing that basically all we did was pass the buck. No different as when you're arresting an adult, pass the buck. Let DOC figure it out. We just wait for the court hearing. There's a lot that goes in, that happens in DOA, that parity is the key. And I understand that on the Hayes study, because when I was at Revenue and Tax, when the Hayes study went in effect, the 40%, when the 40% went in, the Hayes study couldn't overlap because you got a 40% increase. So I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't really get any pay increase. But there never was parity. There was never any sense of identifying that the Department of Youth Affairs is no different as any other law enforcement. If you're required to meet the posts, then let's make sure you get the pay for it or get recognized as such, and then it just works his way. I remember meeting with your director that I was asking during discussion on this bill, is why don't they just do a desk audit and be done with it? Unfortunately, for many years before your director and for myself, they never entertained DOA. For more than 25 years, we didn't talk 30, 40 years. I'll tell you what, you have our attention. You will get entertained somehow, some way. The budget is coming up, and I brought it up to the Senator Amanda's that we're going to figure out a way, and I know that my colleagues will want to bring settlement to the Department of Youth Affairs because another agency will come up and says, well, we need parity, and we'll go to the motion to bring parity. We're not talking about just giving you a pay raise. No. Bring you equal to everybody else. Because at the end of the day, when the people of Guam go out, you folks are all qualified. You see a youth that's being naughty, you're going to do what you need to do. And the community will finally say, why is that lady or that guy doing that? Then somebody's going to say, she's a DYA folk. She's doing what she's supposed to do. Respond to avoid that young man or young woman from going to DOC. Get them, change their mindset, get them focused, get them to the cottage home or somewhere else, not DOC. And I thank you, and I do fully support both bills. You can't just get the pay, get the classification, everything, but then they don't send you to training. No. Everything's got to work hand in hand. The left's got to know what the right's doing and so forth. All right? I'll ask Senator Amanda now to make her closing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to Judge Mossy again for hearing this bill today, and to all of you youth service workers and administrators from the Department of Youth Affairs. I'm, in full support of what Senator Joe mentioned, that whatever route is fastest for us to do this, if the administration and the Department of Administration will move this forward for you, then we are glad that we won't have to hear this bill. And if that's not the case, then we are more than willing to go forward with this piece of legislation. And I wanted to also thank him for his companion legislation that will provide the funds for training to help you move into this reclassification, to ensure that you are prepared and given all the resources that you need to meet the very unique needs as youth service workers or youth corrections officers. And I just wanted to say that, the correctional officers at DYA, you do require very special training and skills to handle all of the unique needs of juvenile offenders. Like we talked about, their emotional and mental needs are much different from that of adults, and you have to be very careful and considerate in all that you do. And you are the people on the ground in contact with these juveniles on a day-to-day basis, and we want to give you the mentorship skills that you need and the structure necessary to prevent future crimes. And that's something that we talk a lot about here in the legislature, how we can prevent recidivism. And I think Mr. Nelson said it the best, that you're the front line to stop the recidivism, to start the reform. And we're very thankful for all that you do to make a safer environment for our youth. And we also want to provide a safer environment for all of you. And we know that providing you this training and this reclassification is really just another investment in our youth, because if we can help them to reform, help to stop the recidivism, then we can turn them into productive citizens of our society and get them into good opportunities so that they won't need the Department of Youth Affairs anymore. And I think that's the real goal here. Our investment in your training and your skills is also an investment in our youth. So again, thank you very much, and I hope that our colleagues will also, if needed, support this bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Amanda Sheldon. There being no one else to testify, and I thank you all for participating today, the committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. Si Jus Masi for your attendance and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The public hearing for bills number 244-35 and 243-35 is now adjourned. It is 10:17. Thank you for your participation today. Thank you. And we will now move to Bill 214, but we will take a few minutes so that we can clear the hearing room. Thank you. We will now continue on with the next bill, which is Bill number 214-35 LS, introduced by Senator Mary Camacho Torres, an act to add a new Article 5, Chapter 48, Title 21 of the Guam Code annotated relative to providing lease protection for tenants who are victims of family violence, sexual assault, or stalking, and to further citing this act as the Guam Safe Housing Act of 2019. Senator Torres asked me to read her opening statement. Bill 214-35 LS, an act to add a new Article 5 to Chapter 48, Title 21 of the Guam Code annotated, relative to providing lease protection for tenants who are victims of family violence, sexual assault, or stalking, and to further citing this act as the Guam Safe Housing Act of 2019, which will be changing to 2020. But simply, this bill would add Guam to a growing list of states that provide clear housing protection for those who may be too afraid or can't afford to move out. The state of violence in Guam. We are painfully aware that the acts of family violence, sexual assault, and stalking continue to plague our island. Data from our Superior Court shows that family violence was the second highest offense charge in 2018, while nearly 400 domestic violence cases were filed by the Attorney General that same fiscal year alone. Guam also has the second highest number of sexual assaults per capita in the nation. And we know that more than half of all survivors are stalked by former intimate partners, many of whom have either lived with them or know the location of their home. And while this body should do everything in its power to reduce these numbers and prevent this type of violence, we also need clear policies that address those who might be trapped right now. Obstacles for victims of violence. Victims may face obstacles in assessing, accessing, and maintaining safe housing. This may stay in an abusive situation because they can't afford to terminate their lease, or face eviction or discrimination from other landlords because of an incident that occurred on the premises. To be clear, I don't believe any landlord wants to subject their tenants to abuse, nor do they desire a disruptive, potentially violent situation on their property. And I want to applaud those who respond to the plight of victims. But right now, under current law, a landlord is entitled to recover actual damages and obtain injunctive relief against a tenant for non-compliance with the rental agreement. They can financially force victims to stay in an abusive relationship or unsafe living environment. Moreover, we have no protection in our Landlord-Tenant Act against retaliation and discrimination. So while most landlords I know would do what they can, we shouldn't take a chance for those who don't. More than half of our states agree. According to the National Housing Law Project, 27 states have built into their laws early lease termination for survivors, while 24 states and localities provide defense against eviction. Moreover, 44 states and localities have laws pertaining to confidentiality of housing records and documentation of victims. I'm simply asking this body to add Guam to that list. What bill does? If enacted, Bill 214 would allow victims of violence to terminate their rental agreement early without being penalized. The bill would require tenants to provide a police report, a restraining or protective order, or written statement from a licensed medical professional as evidence of victimization. Bill 214 would then release the tenant from any rent payment obligation beyond 1 month's rent. The measure further provides protection against eviction, liability under specific circumstances, and prohibits discrimination or retaliation against a tenant solely because he or she is a victim of violence. Under the measure, landlords may not disclose any information provided by the tenant without the victim's written consent or unless required by law or order of the court. Protection for landlords. At the same time, Bill 214 recognizes that it isn't just victims that need clearer protection under the law. Landlords who are trying to do right should be shielded from false notice and entitled to damages related to incidents on their property. That is why if a tenant knowingly submits false written notice or documentation to a landlord as evidence, the landlord may recover an amount equal to 3 months periodic rent or threshold or threefold actual damages. whichever is greater, plus costs and reasonable attorney's fees. The bill further upholds a landlord's right to hold a perpetrator liable for any damages, as well as protecting a landlord or tenant who complies with the bill's provision in good faith. Possible amendments. I do want to note for this public hearing record that my office will be working with the committee to amend Section 48501C1 with the language regarding the landlord's ability to hold on to the security deposit. Based on discussion with stakeholders, I am inclined to remove this section. While there are state safe housing acts that contain this language, I recognize that for many tenants, a security deposit is the difference between staying and living and leaving. The last thing I want is for this section to be used as a means to financially keep victims in an abusive situation. So to this end, my office will work with your committee to make such changes. In short, Bill 214 simply recognizes that what so many of our states have already done. It is hoped that with the explicit protection built into our Landlord-Tenant Act, this body sends a clear message to Guam's victims that no survivors should have to stay in an abusive situation just because they can't afford to move out. We only have Ms. Charlene Cantaniza from VARO that's present to Victims Advocate Reaching Out, VARO. She's present. She's not here to testify, just to listen to whatever happens here in the hearing. And that being said, if I have any of my colleagues that would like, to make any statements in reference to the bill, the sponsor of the bill had to run off to court to take care of whatever action is going on, and she asked me to read her opening statement, and I've done that. And I'll begin with Senator Tello Tideway.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to, though there's no one here to testify, I did reach out to some realtors to look at this bill the other day and gave them a copy. A lot of them didn't realize it was on the agenda, so that's probably why there's no one here today. After speaking with them, they didn't seem to have an issue with this bill at all. However, I did point out that in Section 48502, and they concurred with my findings that I think it's important, if we're going to take the liability away from the victim with regard to any property damage that exceeds the amount of the security deposit, that a lot of times these individuals are taken to small claims court and to recover the additional damage. And that only helps if the individual is there to testify. A lot of times they can't seem to get the case closed because nobody's there to testify that this individual was the one to cause the damage that exceeded, to cause any kind of damage to property that belonging to the landlord. So my amendment would be just to incorporate, Mr. Chair, that if the individual, the victim, is not to be held liable for this property damage, that the victim, in order to like I said, not be responsible, must testify either in person or provide a written affidavit, sworn affidavit to the effect. That's the only thing that, and of course the other realtors that I spoke to said they concur with that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity. And I do support this measure. I think it's very important that these individuals, they're going through a very difficult time, that, they're put in situations, but we also need to remind ourselves that sometimes when they've been in a situation once before, it tends to be repetitive. And instead of, making a change for the good, sometimes these individuals go back to the same abusive spouse or same abusive friend they've been living with. And that's what needs to stop. This repetitiveness of continued violence, especially with one individual. So I appreciate the VAROs here today and knows of this bill, And maybe we can get some written testimony from there too, and there are consensus and statistics and data that would help us move this bill forward. So thank you again, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Senator Amanda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I don't have any questions right now, but I did just want to say that I am in support of the bill, as it is a victim-centric bill, and a few public hearings that we had dealing with other victim-centric legislation. We had individuals come in who testified for the need to have more policy that helped us support them in other areas of life. And so I think that this is a good start for us, the Safe Housing Act of 2020, that will allow these victims of family violence and sexual assault to have some kind of recourse, to have a process for them to turn to when they need a safe place and to get out of these contracts. And so to make that accommodation for them, I think is the least that we can do here.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Pito Terlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't really fully digest the bill in total, but I just want to raise a few issues here regarding damages that is being charged to either the tenant or the landlord. And this was actually addressed a couple of months ago regarding rates by the police department. And I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, if this should be, but if there's a raid on a particular house and police officers go into that house and there was a delay in opening up the door to the house that is being raided, and the police officers break the door, if you will, and go in there and start messing up the house, breaking drawers and things like that. I am not sure if the police department is responsible for the damage. I'm not sure. Another thing that I wanted to raise is, for example, an intruder, the occupants of the house are not present at the house, and then an intruder will go in there and break the window to have access to go inside the house. Who's responsible? Is it the tenant or the landlord? These are some of the questions that are being raised to me, and I'm not sure if I have the right answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lai. In reference to whenever there's any conduct conducted by the government, I'm almost sure that the Government Claims Act takes a role on that. When somebody wants to claim that the government was abusive or negligent, then the government will pay for the damages. Now, in reference to intruders, it's like we've done when in the police department. If you don't know who the one that conducted the damage, then automatically it'll be a give and take with the landlord and the tenant on who pays for the damages. A lot of tenants today have rental insurance, so they're covered. So I don't think that would be much of an issue. Now, there being no one here to testify, the committee will conclude the public hearing for Bill 214-35. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. I will also communicate with the author to reach out to the real estate agents out there, industry, and find out how they felt about it, so we can get some written testimony, and also to every other agency that it may apply to. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. Jesus Masi for your attendance and participating in today's hearing. For those at home, thank you for watching. This public hearing for Bill 214-35 LS is now adjourned. It is now 10:37. Thank you and have a nice day.